There are a lot of ways to create shadows in Photoshop. Here is one super quick way. It is by no means the most sophisticated way. So if you want to search on the internet, do a Google search for different ways to create drop shadows, please do so. First thing I want to do is duplicate the layer that I want to create the shadow on, and I'm going to call it shadow. In this case, it's the dog. I'm going to create a layer adjustment for exposure and reduce the exposure completely. I'm going to then remember to click on the icon to isolate it to the layer immediately underneath, which is shadow. And then I'm going to drag the dog layer up to the top and then click back on the shadow layer, so we're editing the shadow layer. Next, I'm going to position the shadow layer by going up to Edit, Transform, Distort, and the first thing we're going to do is try and approximate the location that we want the shadow to be in. In this case, I want it to be going off to the right-hand side because it seems like the sun is on the upper left in this image, and you can see that the shadow keeps disappearing and reappearing, and that's because of the manner in which I am distorting it. It is getting lost temporarily, but it's still there, so I'm just revising those points as I go along without worry. I know it's going to reappear. Okay, so we've got it approximately close to where I want it to be. I'm going to refine that a little bit because in real life, shadows do funny things as they stretch out. So I'm going back to transform, and this time I'm going to choose warp. And the warp tool allows you to kind of selectively transform an area by squeezing it or pinching it and basically just warping it around. So as shadows fall, they sometimes become pointier as they go further away. So I'm making the head a little bit pointier and the body still remains sort of large. That's pretty close. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Enter or Return. Now, the next thing I notice is that the shadow has a very sharp outline. I want the shadow to be a little bit softer because that is more realistic. So on the layer itself, there is the layer thumbnail and the layer mask thumbnail. I'm going to edit the layer mask thumbnail by clicking on it. And in the properties settings, I'm going to feather that shadow layer mask. It is only applying to the mask. Now, it's also now too opaque, so we need to change the opacity and blending mode of the layer itself. So I'm going to change the blending mode to multiply and decrease the opacity of the layer. It's going to be a strong shadow because it's a very sunny day. And so there is our quick and dirty shadow using an exposure layer.